33. Welcome back, everyone, to the Real 33 podcast. I am Rick. With me, as always, is the whimsical and radical Brandon. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Rick. How's it going, buddy?
I'm so excited for this episode.
Yeah, I think we're going to go into the vault and uncover some real nice gems today of our guests.
Yes, we certainly are. You know, we have had the absolute fortune thus far to be joined by our radical main man, our rad dude, Crew Jones himself, Mr. Bill Allen.
Hey now.
Hey, Bill.
How's it going?
It's going great, and I'll tell you why. I am excited for this episode. We have a very special guest with us today. It means a lot to me because Rad as a story is really what inspired me to be a writer, and especially a screenwriter. I apprenticed for a screenwriting consultant back in the late 90s in Sherman Oaks when I lived in Northridge, California. And the first thing I did in that gig was measure up Rad, the original script to Rad, to the 6-story plot structure that Michael Haig, my boss, teaches his clients and his students as well. So we are thrilled to introduce our first guest, the guy that made it happen. We have Sam Bernard, who wrote the script. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. We have so much to discuss. Brandon.
Yes, sir.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to start from the beginning of where this whole thought process began, and we're going to go all the way to the end. And then we do have a special question from Mike Haif. For both, I'm going to ask both Bill and Sam the same question, but we'll wait for that for later, okay? And for Mike submitting that question on the Rad Army, we're going to basically give him a nice swag bag. And I'm excited, man. This is very thrilling. I know people are waiting to hear about what Sam's has to say. And we're going to uncover all the rad facts, man, right here. So,
absolutely.
You ready to take it away?
I know I am. How about you guys? So, Sam, tell me, what was it like when you were first, long before you had any offers on the script? And it's my understanding that you had several different offers before you guys went into production. Talk to us about the origins of Rad, what was originally titled, you know, how you came up with the concept and how it ended up to be what we know of it as today.
Bill told the story fairly accurately. There was some geographical, I mean, I'm not sure how great my memory is either, but it wasn't, essentially, I had written a movie that got made, that was getting made, and it was called 315, and it was a small movie, but it had a really stellar cast in it with Mario Van Peebles and Debbie Foreman, and it got so I was getting a lot of interest from studios. I was young at the time, and I'd done that myself, and then I had been working for I'd been working for Blake Edwards and his development reading and that kind of stuff, and
yep.
And so I met Jeffrey, his son, and we got along really well, and we both had this idea. I had this idea that I wanted to write, and it was about my experiences coming from humble origins with a character actor father, and we moved into Beverly Hills because a friend of his had an extra house there. One of his very successful actor friends, so he kind of let us just live. We lived in Beverly Hills. This is in the 70s.
Wow.
So I was a poor kid in Beverly Hills because my dad was just like, okay, you know, he was an actor, you know. Mm-hmm. He was living, you know, from check to check. So I mean, and so the idea came about to do a movie sort of in the vein of which was popular then, of Risky Business, and Jeffrey and I, and so we sort of took it from different points of view because Jeff was Blake Edwards' son and I was and we decided to do a thing about life in Beverly Hills in Beverly Hills High School, and for the core of it was that, and this is true, friends of mine and I started casinos there, blackjack casinos.
Oh wow!
And so in terms of we sort of replaced the brothel that they did in Risky Business with that. And anyway, we wrote a treatment and it went out and it got a bidding war and we got a boatload of money from a studio to do this, and things were flying, and we were doing it, and Jeff and I were doing it, and we weren't really partners at the time. We never said, "Oh, well, this is going to be." It was just a good match for this particular script, and we were doing that script, and we were doing the rewrite of it, coming towards the end of the process, and we had at that point we had gotten an agent, and he said, "You guys got to think of something fucking else, and because you got to cash in on this. I can get you into any office in town, blah blah blah." And I didn't know what to do really. I didn't have any clue. There was a lot of manufactured ideas running around in my head, but I was on Olympic Boulevard and saw this kid come up it was Memorial Park. It wasn't the boardwalk. It was Memorial Park, which is 14th and Olympic, which Tony Donaldson straightened me out on, because I didn't really remember. I had dinner with Tony the other night. Yeah. I don't know if you know Tony.
I saw it on Facebook. That was pretty cool.
Okay, yeah. So Tony said, "Oh yeah, you were in Memorial Park. That's always. You're right, And I told him that's right. And I just saw a kid just sort of leap up over this fence on this bicycle, and I said, "Did I ever see that?" So I pull over in my car, and I go off, and I see these 4 or 5 kids, and they've got these crude half pipes and kind of stuff, and they're they're really noisy with their bikes, and they're doing. I never saw anything like it, and I was a pretty, when I was younger, the biggest day of my life was getting my Schwinn, Stingray. I loved it, that was. I never competed with it, but we just, it was like, getting a bicycle for the first time, riding a bicycle for the first time is a seminal event in any person's life, whether they realize it or not. They have just expanded their world. They have just made themselves, they can travel way beyond. They're out of whatever bubble they are, or they can choose to. So, while riding a bike is not like driving a car, and people usually riding a bike, especially 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, their world becomes a whole different thing. So it's always, I sort of attribute a lot of that to the success of Rad, but I didn't start out that way. So, it wasn't just,
Yeah.
I wish I could say I had that kind of wisdom, but it didn't occur to me until much later. Actually, much later, Bill and I were actually driving up, because for years I put Rad out of my head, and I had a different, I had other things I was doing, other movies I was doing, and it was disappointing. It was it tested so high. That movie tested so high, it was 96%, that everyone said it's going to be a giant hit, and it wasn't. And so, and I have my thoughts on that, but so I stop. I try to talk to these kids. I'm 24 years old. They're 13 or 14, and they're crazy. They don't want anything to do with me. They're like, get out of here. They don't want to talk to me. I'm thinking I'm not that much older. Yeah, well, they still don't want to talk to me, right? But I didn't care. I kind of watched them for about 20 minutes or so, and I don't know if Martin was there or not, Bill. But you said he was, so I don't remember.
I'm told there, but through Martin that it was Martin himself and Woody Itzen, one of the premier writers at the time. But we can fact check that.
Went over to a bike store after they wouldn't tell me any more information, like what is that or anything. And I talked to the guy behind the thing. It was the Beverly Hills bike store, and I said to him, "Hey, I just saw these kids, and they were doing this. They were a bunch of nuts, and they were doing all this stuff on plywood and stuff like that. And they're bouncing on their front tire, and they're whipping their rear tire, and he just, oh, that's BMX here. And he shows me this magazine. Oh, I never seen that before in my life. I had no clue. Honestly, I had no clue. And I go, and I wasn't even thinking movie actually up until I was driving home. And then he gave me that.
Hey, Sam, what magazine was that? Do you recall if it was BMX Action or BMX Plus?
Well, I asked Tony what it would have been, and he said it's probably BMX Action.
Okay.
Makes sense.
These are all important things that people are going to be dying to know. So
yeah, no, I know.
We're going to dissect the hell out of this.
I might have said BMX Plus in the past, but Tony said that it would have been before that time. So I have to. I don't remember what it was, but I mean, honestly, I have no. But I bring it home with me. I was living in the back house, in the guest house of a guy named Robert Levy, who was a friend of mine, and he had done Smokey and the Bandit, and we had worked together on a couple of other. We had television series at NBC. We had set up, and we had done some stuff, and I didn't tell him right away, but I wanted to talk to the guy I was working with. We were supposed to come to a writing session with Jeffrey Edwards, and he comes up, and I show him this and this, and he goes, "Oh yeah, look, I saw this in Geo magazine, which was this sort of coffee table magazine for, it wasn't like a BMX magazine; it was just an article." And it said, and in that magazine, it said, "Yeah, they, in the year before, they sold 7 million BMX bikes," and I went, "Wow." That's if you put, and that's when I thought it was completely predatory. I mean, that's when I thought 7 million bikes. If you do 20% of let's say 20% of those people went to a movie, right? You're like going to make money. You're going to print money. That was a huge number. I had no clue, and that's when there was no internet at the time, so you had to go and we had to find some stuff. And so then I showed it to Rob. So then I showed it to Robert Levy, and I said, you got to get your guy. You've been looking for something else. And he said, he was hesitant. I don't know how, he and Smokey, the whole Smokey thing was past, and I didn't know how close he was with him at the time, and if they had gotten along. Anyway, literally about 2 days later, we were in Hal Needham's office, which was an amazing experience. Do you remember that office, Bill?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. It was an amazing. It was like all these awards.
Let's go back to that. So did you know Hal already?
No, I didn't. Robert,
walk us through that part. Let's not miss those important details. You picked up the phone and called him up and said, "Hey, I'm heading over," or what?
I didn't. No, Robert Levy picked up the phone and called him up because I didn't know Hal Needham from Adam.
He was the bridge.
Yeah, okay. Robert Levy was his partner on Smokey and the Bandit, so it was an easy connection, but it was still, Hal's so iconic, and what's he going to say to you? You never want to be rejected by Hal either, because he's like, he's the kind of guy you always want. Bill will probably tell you, test this more than I can. You want to make him happy when you're working for him. That was one of his great talents, is that everyone wanted to please him. Everyone wanted, because there isn't anything that he would ask of anyone that he wouldn't do himself, and that was his sort of his credo. And so Robert Levy makes the phone call, gets the meeting. We go in there, show him the magazine, get introduced to him. I show him the magazine because, I don't know about this stuff. He says, I blow shit up and I drive cars fast. I don't see it. I don't see myself doing it. And I'm like, I can't let this go. And I go, listen, Mr. Needham, you can call me fucking Hal. And he's like, listen, Hal. I go, wheels in motion or wheels in motion. I said that, and he said, that's true, but it's, there's no motors. And so Robert, the good producer that he is, thought ahead and had found out that there was a BMX exhibition at Griffith Park in the Equestrian Center like 2 days later. And so Robert said, come with us to see these. And Robert had never seen it either, so he was bullshitting his way through there too. And we got Hal out there on a Saturday morning, and there was some BMXers out there, and they were doing their thing. They were like, I don't know, I was sick with the flu. I remember that, but I remember Hal Needham turning to me and giving me the nod, and I said, "Oh my God, that's a movie," And
that was the moment.
Okay.
Yeah,
who were the writers that day?
I'm sorry.
Do you know who the writers were that day?
I have no clue. I mean, it was, that wasn't what was on. I mean, thinking about them. I mean, your steps have, you have to take steps towards these things. You know, it was just a dream at that point. Probably. I don't see how you would ever back check that, but I would. I love Martin. You know, Martin's an earnest, honest guy. You know, so let's take his word for it. I'm not. I can't say that it wasn't. I just don't have a clue. I think that there were more than 2 people, though. That's kind of what I remember. I think there were quite a few people there. But you know, if there was going to be anyone, it would have been Itzen and Martin, who would have done the impressing. You know, I think so. You know, but Hal was impressed, and then we had to come up with a story. You know, that's a whole other story.
So, how much of that story that you had already written or had already worked on became the finished script?
Well, at that point, when Hal agreed, we didn't have a story.
Okay.
We just decided to do a BMX movie.
Okay, cool.
You know, there wasn't a story yet.
Yep.
And so then we went back, and you know, I came up with the story about this kid trying to, you know, he doesn't want to, you know. Here's the thing. I mean, I had a little different concept on it. It was supposed to be skewed. The concept was, as a kid, he's a paper boy, and he loves. That's what he does, and but you know, he's a senior in high school, doesn't have a car, comes from a very poor family, and is not a great student, and is terrified of leaving high school. And it was kind of a theme because there were I had a couple of friends. I had at least one friend that I know that deliberately wanted to stay back behind because the expectations of him were too high. You know.
Sure.
So I kind of took that thing because I think that that's a fairly, you know, widespread sort of fear of, you know, taking that next step into the world, and that's what I wanted it to be. So I wrote him as a little bit more of a you know, of a troublemaker, of a jokester. You know, a lot of yeah.
At what point did y'all decide to dress Crew Jones very poorly and bad?
I didn't quite hear.
I said, at what point did y'all decide to have Crew Jones dress really badly, like very poorly?
Well, I think that was due to his socioeconomic place. You know, I think that was that played a real role in who he was and what he wanted to achieve. And you know, the whole thought that there's really only one way, and that's college, was kind of the thing I wanted to challenge. I didn't go to college, and here I was in Hollywood making movies. You know, I mean, it was kind of like, you know, there was, you know, an indirect, you know.
So there was a personal sentiment there.
Yeah. I mean, I literally couldn't wait to get out of high school. And then when I got out of high school and was enrolled in a junior college, I said, why am I doing this? I hated what I was just doing, and this is just going to be more of that.
Is there any part of the movie where they talk about or discuss his father at all?
He's only mentioned once.
And I've somehow, as much as I've watched Rad, I've missed that. Well, I know in the kitchen scenes he mentions about the dad, but what happened to the dad?
Well, we might find that out in the future. I'm gonna avoid that question for right now.
Oh, good. He's already holding back on us.
No, it's all right. Here's a oddball question that I know a lot of people are asking, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but who in the world came up with "Let's walk this sucker"?
Well, that was Jeffrey and I. That was in the script. That was always in the original script. Yeah, but we came up with so many different opening lines to the movie, and it was just like, I don't remember who the last one was, but we must have done 200. Wow. And just for that. Yeah. Just for that line, we just came up with
ass sliding is often talked about and celebrated. How did that concept arise?
I mean, you know, looking at Lori and just going, hey, it makes sense. Hold on one second.
I love the way we're all raising our hands up like we're in class. And then Sam's like, all right, Bill, your turn to talk.
Ass sliding was just sort of came out of it was something that I thought would be cool. That would be. Now, I didn't know how it worked, and I remember Hal Needham going, how the fuck is this going to work? What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? And I said, I don't really know. I just kind of saw them on a little hill with some mud, and they would just kind of go down and end up in the water and get cold and warm each other up. I mean, that was kind of the genesis of the scene. You know, it was supposed to bring them together, and it's supposed to be this kind of thing that no one else in the world would ever ask anyone to do. You know, so we called it ass line. But Hal, in his wisdom, and he was right, he said, I got to create this thing, you know, that's coming down this hill, and so they can really slide, because how are you going to get these guys to slide? You know, I didn't. It was in my head, but it wasn't. I'm glad I didn't. Wasn't.
So that was a prop that was made. That wasn't actually already there.
We built that. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
We're getting the information we need right there.
And I'll tell you why that's awesome, because for almost my entire life, my belief, because you know everybody else was talking about the concept of ass sliding, arose from an old abandoned chute that the lumberjacks used to use to slide the logs down into the river, so that they could cut them down river.
I think that's a great story. I think I think it's a tradition in Cochrane, and that's what it is. I mean, and that's how it shows up. But no, we had to build that. I mean, and that, like I said, that's the funniest part of that, was that Hal Needham said, I don't know what the hell you're talking about here. I have no clue what you're talking about. All right, whatever. And then the next thing I knew, he was building this thing, you know, and there was a thing underneath there. And it's like, you know, without saying it, it obviously became this tradition of Cochrane. And yeah, it worked great, you know, it was spectacular, you know, and it's like, you know, how do you get these two guys together and you know, kind of do it in a way that, you know, where it's pretty and even a little corny and schmaltzy, and you know, it was great. I love that sequence.
Hey Sam, so tell us about the casting part. Were you a part of that? Were you helping pick out who they're going to choose for the different roles, or if you weren't, who was the first one casted?
Well, like I said, Hal was very nervous about young people, about doing a movie with young people. So I was really fortunate. He forced me to be there. And a lot of writers don't get that opportunity. You know, a lot of times you write the script and then they just ship you off to Siberia and they never want to see you again. So this was the opposite. So I got offered a job as a producer on the movie and help cast. I don't really know that much about the production process at that point. And so we hired a casting director and started to see people. There was a first choice for crew. It wasn't Bill, and it wasn't Robert Downey Jr. It was C. Thomas Howell, and he is from a stunt family, and his whole family has a lot of, you know, has really big roots, right, Bill, in the stunt world. And so Tommy wanted to come in. Now they were the rival. They were Tommy's father, I forget the name, but they were the rivals to Hal's union. You know, they were two organizations. There was Stuntman Inc., which was Hal, and then there was, I think, the United Stuntman Association. And Hal knew of them, but they had never met, which was kind of strange. And so there was a meeting set up with Tommy Howell, who at that time had done The Outsiders. He had done Secret Admirer. He was a big star at the time. And he came in, cocky as you can be, and he said, I'm never going to do this movie, but I really wanted to meet Hal Needham.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Actually, that's what he said.
And he was fresh off of The Outsiders at that point, right?
Outsiders,
Rumblefish,
Admirer, a lot of stuff, you know, Rumblefish. I mean, you know, he was a big, you know, he was very appealing, a really kind of guy. But he actually came in and said that. And
he really said, I'm never going to do this movie.
No, I know. Yeah, no, he was making millions of dollars, and we were a low budget.
No, I get it. I just was surprised he actually just said that.
But he wanted to meet Hal Needham, and kind of, you know, so because that was, you know, it's so much in their blood, you know, both of them, his family, you know, they were all, I guess his father and his brothers were all stuntmen, and I actually I did a movie with Tommy. Actually, you can see the poster in the back here called Payback.
Oh, yeah.
So I became, I asked him about that too. I said, because we spent a lot of time together on this one, and he goes, I didn't do that. Because I never said that, and he knew he did, but and I became, we became really really friendly, but I couldn't wait until we were like on the, we shot it up in Cambria. I couldn't wait till we were on the set and to say, why did you fucking waste our time?
Who were the other choices for like Lori Loughlin's part?
The only one I really remember clearly was Mariska Hargitay. Whatever.
No kidding.
Who is that?
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was talk of Alicia Silverstone, but she was too big. And she was too big at the time, and not too many. I mean, Lori came along and she came in for 5 minutes and basically, said okay, and basically we didn't even read her. She's a really charismatic personality, and it's hard. She just. She's an attractive personality, and she's very magnetic, and so she just captures you when she walks in the room.
You just knew that she was a fit.
Yeah, it would have been great. And then we were still looking for a crew, and there was a couple of other guys that we saw quite a few people, and there was a new movie coming out that was just being finished called Weird Science, and so we interviewed Robert Downey Jr. and he came in and gave a really good reading, but Hal wasn't sure, and a couple days later, he came up, showed us a tape of Bill on Hill Street Blues, brought Bill in, and
Sam,
Hal wanted Bill, and we were grateful for that.
How upset was Lori when she found out that she could have been making out with Robert Downey Jr. or Thomas E. Hal?
Oh, she was
crushed.
Devastated. Sorry, Bill.
I'm the guy who got to do it, so I'm fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No complaints on your end, right?
Well, I was more concerned about her end, but
she was very cooperative. I don't she was great. And she did it, and she was a trooper. But it was a tough role because it was like supposed to be this key role, but really it was a manufactured female role. So it's like, how do we get one of these young TV stars or something into this movie, because you are still dealing with money people and studios who are going to distribute, and they need stuff for their posters and their commercials, and so you're ruled by them to a certain degree. If you're Hal Needham, less so, but but still there was some pressure for us to do some star casting.
Who do you think was if you had to choose one person on the set, who was the biggest star? Was it Bart? Was it Lori? Are there somebody on there that stood out? I guess Talia probably was the biggest one at that time. Yeah.
I mean, Hal Needham's set is different than the other set I've been in. I mean, Hal Needham's a star. That's really how it came down. No,
I mean the cast, though. The cast.
The cast was. I don't remember. There were no prima donnas on the set at all, except for Bill. And and I mean, Bill was the star of the movie. It was his movie, and so everyone had to be really supportive of him. And
you want to open up about something here about his actions on set?
Oh no, yeah, he was a good boy.
That's what the lady said at the parade.
I mean, Bart was nervous because Bart had never acted before. So, and he did a hell of a job. I don't think that shows there's a huge difference. Bill was a pretty experienced actor. Even back then, he had done enough to be a professional. Lori was obviously, and then you have icons like Ray Walston and Jack Weston, And so you have, Bart Conner, who had never acted before in his life, and had a blown out knee, couldn't walk, and he was great. I mean, so I don't know. I can't pick out anyone who really was the star of because there was also a lot of separate scenes with people all over the place. When obviously when Jose was there, he was the star. He might have been the highest paid guy in that movie.
Jose Yanez is the highest paid.
Well, for the amount of work he did, I think he was.
Oh wow.
I mean,
for risking his life.
Well, okay, so when you think about it, I mean, he's the only guy in the world who could do that at the time, and he had, and it was crucial that he does it. It's that was not written into the script, by the way. And that's one thing I like to tell is that no, there was no, because I didn't know that he existed until after we cast the movie and we hired Pat Romano as the stunt coordinator, and Eddie Fiola came aboard as an advisor, and we had no clue what the BMX world was. I mean, the only one who helped us and who was great was Skip Hess, and he was the mongoose guy, and Skip was nothing but, I'll get you whatever you need,
All right, this is good.
You use me as the bad guy. Anything. He was great, and so we learned a lot from him, and we.
So Skip Hess said, make Mongoose the bad guy in this thing. Let me be the bad guy. Oh, see, that's actually a lot of people. That's a question that pops up all the time. Mongoose, did they allow this? Were they for it? Obviously allowed it, but were they for this? And you're saying he was just a trooper. Let's make this movie. Let's make it great.
I mean, it was all his. It was all his. He pushed it. He pushed it. He said yes. Well, when you look at the story, what are you going to do? I mean, it was great promotion for his company. I mean, it really was. I understood it at the time. I mean, it just seemed like, and he gave us all the bites we wanted, all the writers we needed, and he was there. He was there for so much of the filming, and and Duke Best is modeled after him.
Right. So the question I have, or one of the questions I have, for me, the character that I felt that was the most heartfelt was Sergeant Smith. Mm-hmm. He played the cop that was chasing the kids through the lumberyard, but it was his scene right before the race where he says, "Crew, you can do it. Just go balls out." How much of that one line was part of the original script, and was the original script called Balls Out?
The original script was called Balls Out.
Fantastic. I knew it.
The original script was called Balls Out. I never heard the name BMX's Electric Boogaloo. That's what someone said on the on
I think somebody was just throwing it in there.
So too, but that's what it was called, but it was understandable. I mean, we threw a lot of names around, and when Rad came up, it rang right. The movie. I think by the time we even got to finishing the movie, we had already come up with Rad, and Balls Out was out the window.
Right.
And,
but you kept that one line in.
Oh yeah. Well, the line. I mean, I think there was also some question as to what the hell it means, and we know what it means, but but in that culture it means something. But I'm not sure that they felt that it would have translated to a broader audience. Like Talia Shire, I think, said recently on an interview, "Oh, it sounds like Balls Out sounded like a Monty Python movie or something like that."
So when they used the Murray to let Crew Jones win the race on, means how I found out now that Skip Hess was actually there on set. How did that happen? How did they allow a Murray to win that race and not the Mongoose?
Well, because Mongoose was the bad guys. And so
okay, I'm just again, I'm a little bit I mean, I get it and I understand it, but I'm a little surprised that Mongoose was on set and said, I don't want, I would have thought he would have insisted that Crew Jones would win that race on a Mongoose.
But it's the old cliche, you know, any publicity is better than no publicity, and even if it's bad publicity, it's good publicity.
Oh, totally.
So I think he was very smart, and he did, and that would have been and what logo do you see more than anything all over that movie?
Of course. Why do they leave out the scene, or do you know why they cut the scene where they give the Murray to Crew Jones? That's something that's often asked, because a lot of people don't even realize he's riding the Murray. They just don't pay attention to that detail. Now, our diehard fans, of course, catch it. Why was that cut out? Do you know?
It was. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, I remember being Bill probably answered that better, because I know it was in the script, and I know it got cut out, and I knew that we were, that there was some editing done to even out the film in places. Not that we were long or anything, we weren't, but there was some feeling that maybe the last act was a little too uneven compared to the rest of the movie. I don't know. So what was it, Bill?
I've actually seen the scenes that were cut. There's 4 or 5 scenes that didn't make the theatrical release, and the long and the short of it is the scene's hideous. It's awful. I'm embarrassed where the 7-Eleven guy gives me the Murray bike at Hell Track, and he's like, here's the bike. Now, you'd think this would be an earth-shattering thing for a young crew. And in the scene, I'm just like, oh, thank you. And I walk away. So
he just goes, get out of my way.
Yeah, it was like a filmed rehearsal. It just, it just did not belong. And thankfully, the editors were on point, and they cut these scenes that just didn't belong there. They weren't up to snuff, and they didn't move the story along. Thankfully.
But they did make it in a Canadian television version.
How does that happen?
It's totally different from what I understand.
How big of a part did Chevrolet play into the movie Rad? Were they one of the sponsors?
Well, they're only because Hal has, his NASCAR connections, and sure, here, throw a Corvette in there, for the kid. He was amazing. I mean, he knew the 7-Eleven guys. Somehow he got the General Mills guys. I mean, it was just. He had a guy who came work for us too, named Dale Benson. And he had worked on all of Hal's movies, and he was Hal's point man on product placement. But coming from the NASCAR world, that's all sponsors. I mean, you guys,
of course.
I mean, it's everything is sponsors in the NASCAR world. So Hal was, that was his, that was his main hobby. Actually, would have been his preferred choice of profession. I went with him out to a race out in Ontario, and it was fucking amazing being in the pit and watching him go. And he was, if you thought he was tough on the set, man, he was screaming at these guys like they needed a tire change, man. He is right there. It was. I mean, I had a headache for days afterwards, but it was a great time. And it was in the middle of the rewrites and getting, moving, heading towards shooting. And so, of course, I had to go with him because, you had to. I mean, he invites you, you go. It was fun. It was fun. So, his connection to the sponsorship world was just invaluable. This movie is a Hal Needham film. I mean, and given that the budget was so much lower than his normal films than he had done, there was like no one was going to tell him what to. I mean, he really got to make whatever he wanted.
Do you mind saying what the budget was?
The budget was about $3 million.
About $3 million. Okay.
Yeah, they say $11 million. It's not true.
Huh.
No. It was about $3 million, and we came in under that.
And how long did it take for you to write the script?
The first draft took no time at all. Once I had it in my head, I didn't even bring Jeffrey on into the process until after I had finished the bicycle scene, which I loved, and the paper route, then okay, let's work out the rest of the story. And it was, this race is coming. I mean, the story remained the same. What the ultimate financiers, Talia Shire and her husband Jack Schwartzman, they wanted to take out the troublemaker aspect of Crew, and they wanted the SAT thing in there. And I fought them on it as much as I could, but in the end, Hal supported it. So I was, you got to know when you're going to win your battle.
And look at the irony of the SAT now.
Yeah, I know. Go there.
So from word number one to the last word written, how long would you say? Is it a month, 2 months? How long do you think?
Well, I mean, you're always writing when you're on. I mean, also being the writer and also being on the set. I mean, you're constantly rewriting it. I mean, every night, almost every night. I mean, you've got to look at it because you'll think of stuff that'll come. I mean, perfect example. I mean, how far in when you get the, you have to you had to restructure a whole section once you found out there's this guy who can do this incredible backflip, right? I mean, so now you've got to write that into the movie. I mean, it just if you don't, you're derelict, because that at the time was the most hard, amazing stunt that we heard anyway, and we didn't know much about BMX. I don't know how many people did, but so I was writing basically towards the end. You're always, and I've done that on most of the movies I've done. I mean, I did a movie, but I mean, the script intact. The script was fairly intact once we started shooting, and then there was just a lot of tweaks along the way. And also remember, we couldn't cast the movie fully until we were up in Canada. We weren't going to keep going back and forth. We were on a budget. And we had to use a lot of local Canadian people, and they weren't necessarily great actors. They were just community theater people or whatever. And yet we had to do that. So there were like the guy who played Crew's workmate, right? He was good. So we expanded that role. We expanded. Let's make him a. That didn't happen until after we met that guy, and so we said let's make him an adversary of Crew's, and Crew just is blob, I mean that's how that came about, and then we gave a part away, we gave a part away to for a raffle, and
I love it.
Which part was that?
It was the lady the Latino lady at Hell Track.
Remember, she took his popcorn or something.
She had one line, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, Crew's my buddy. I worked with that guy.
But he was great. So we we wanted, look, we were surprised. It was like Jamie Clark. What a find,
Oh, I mean, for sure.
He was not an actor, but he was a natural, and he gave us. I mean, and he became. We all became really fast friends with him too. I mean, he was a great guy, and he just took right to it, and I don't know, Bill, how much experience did Jamie have?
Zero. Yeah,
right.
Zero. He was.
Well, Bill, you were kind of in.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say you guys were in the same boat. You had different experiences with acting. You had admitted yourself in the last couple of episodes that you weren't a racer and you weren't a writer per se. What was going through your mind the first time you read this script, knowing what was ahead of you?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I was in hog heaven. This was the thing that I was gunning for as a young actor, is to be put in that kind of a role where you're the main focus and you get the girl and win the race. So Hal was such an icon and so experienced in the stunt world. I had zero worry. I should have been a little more worried, frankly. I would have put more time into it, but I knew they had great stunt doubles, and I showed up onto the set fairly relaxed, and had I more time to think about it, I would have been a little little more uptight, because these people were on point. They knew what they wanted. They knew what they were trying to get a point across on the screen, and I just kind of went with it.
Yeah, he had a hard time. I mean, the whole really. I mean, we wouldn't have wanted him to know this beforehand, but the entire movie sort of rests on his shoulders as a performer. And if you don't really buy crew, you can't buy the entire premise.
That's all. And Ed likes to poke fun at me and say I was his acting double, but it's kind of true. It was such a stunt heavy movie, and so much depended on the stunts going off. What I was there to do was to sell the story. And I felt at the time I knew how to do that. Yeah. It wasn't that big of a stretch as an actor. I wasn't doing Elephant Man. I was doing a character fairly close to me. Just I couldn't ride a bike very well.
Well, that's the homage. Guys like me, I grew up with this film, and Bill, you were fantastic in the role. Sam, the script was written so well, and I think that's the reason. Those two elements are the reasons why we're all here today, is because everything about this film, it just resonated with my generation, and people that were a part of it obviously had a different experience. But this inspired me and my neighborhood gang to, build a racetrack in the woods, and that was my experience, and it would never have been possible if you guys hadn't joined forces. So, on behalf of everybody, thank you both so much.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: in making the movie, it was a really uplifting, great experience. I think for most everyone. I think everyone it was a lot of fun to make it. People look forward to it, and we're always hoping that would come across. That's not always true on movie sets,
Sure.
But it was a really fun, uplifting experience. I mean, the movie was fun. We were all having fun, one way or another,
Rick, I've got a lot more questions. I feel like you're about to end this, man. So we're not.
No, not at all. I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to get that in there before I.
All right, you said thank you.
Yeah.
So let's start with this one, okay? Actually, I'm glad that Bill's on here right now with Sam. I got one for both of you guys, okay? And this comes from Mike F. Mike asked a question: if you could change one thing about the movie, what would it be? And I'll start with Sam.
That's a question that I've gone over so many times. There's like a million little things, but I can't really focus on any one thing. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred the story point, the character arc that I originally came up with. No matter who was going to play him, which would have been, a little more of an arc there in the character. Well, I mean, the original crew was written more like a troublemaker and a guy, and not a settled person at all, and I would have preferred to remain with that as opposed to making him a little too clean, I guess, with the SATs and that thing. I never liked it. I never did feel that it rang really true. And I feel that it eliminated one of the seeds of the story, not of the movie, which was BMX, but the seeds of the story, which was, what does someone do when they reach this point in their life? Especially in the 80s. I mean, college was like getting expensive, and it was like you have to do. And then the world, things were really turning. The whole financial world was, very, very, it was very prominent, and there was all this pressure. And like most people weren't ready for that. And what do you do when you're not ready for that? I mean, so that was where the germ of the character and the story came from. So I would have preferred to, if there's one thing I could have changed, I would have gone back to that. I would have gone back to that. Yeah. I mean,
so Rick,
I don't think it changes the movie.
What I'm hearing is
I mean, it's still about, it actually, I think, makes it a stronger arc, because now you have this guy who's like says, you know what, I got to do what I got to do, and my options are thin, and so I've got to follow this and and anyway, that's how I see it, and but who can say? It might not have turned out. It might not have turned out to be this incredible, cult classic had it gone that way. I don't know.
So basically, if they'd stuck to what Sam wrote and what he wanted to have, Crew Jones wouldn't have ran away from Lori.
Anyone might run away from Lori for a minute there, so I can't blame him. Yeah.
All right. So same question, Bill. And I saw you. We're seeing the visual, Bill. I saw him looking up to the sky, thinking about this. What's it going to be, Bill?
Yeah, more ass sliding and more make-out scenes with Lori. I think that would pretty much complete it.
I accept your answer.
People are always asking me, what was your favorite part of the movie? I'm like, making out with Lori. Did you not see the movie? I'm a simple guy with simple needs. And when those days come on your call sheet, today's the day I get paid to make out with a 23-year-old Lori Loughlin, you have won life. That day, you have won at life. And I've had a few of those days in my life, and maybe there'll be more.
It sounds like if they'd listened to Sam, Bill, you would have got your wish, and you would have woke up maybe eating some kicks with Lori. But all that stuff went out the damn way. It was to the wayside. So, yeah, we would have had Sam, had they listened to you through the whole thing, it sounds like there'd been a little bit more of
PG movie and PG-17 movie, to be honest with you, the way we made it. But, we started making one movie, which was a teen movie, which was the concept, and then it turned into really I think it was like a 4 to 11 movie, and that's who came. That's who came. The people who came in the theaters were young. They were kids. They were younger than 10, 11, because they like to see those are their idols. Being 15 and 16, you want to see cars, not bicycles. So I mean, I think that there really was. I think that age for a targeted audience to when you talk about marketing should have been younger, and that's my opinion. I think it would have had more success in the theaters because the kids that were renting it were like, when they first heard about it, they were that age, and then it really didn't even start getting huge until the mid 90s, I think.
Well,
I mean, really,
you talking about BMX?
The movie?
No, the movie.
Oh no, yeah. I'll tell you right now, I'm thinking about the Karate Kid. How they are a little bit more aggressive with the bad guys and the storylines. And do you ever hear about Rad being compared to Karate Kid?
All the time, but we can't. It's a whole different. Karate Kid was made for a big budget for a big studio. We were a small independent company. It was more of an organic conflict in there. There was a certain responsibility, I think, that we felt to that, since this BMX was not. I mean, it's not wasn't a household at that time. So we felt a certain need and responsibility to educate, show what BMX was before we even presenting our story. So you're starting from a little bit of a deficit there.
I just would like to see Rex and Rod team up and jump Crew Jones and whip his ass. And you know what I mean? Just like the beach scene in Karate Kid, like the Cobra Kai, which is Mongoose versus, Ralph Macchio, Bill Allen. I'd like to see that would have been great. They had Rex and Rod jump him at some point. Maybe a chick get involved and bash someone over the head with a bottle. That would be awesome. Bill?
Brandon, you brought up some very cogent points, and I know we can discuss these on a later episode. However, I've got to cut it off here pretty quick. So if you have any more questions about scenes that were never conceived or shot.
My only comment is if I had gone to school with girls that looked like Lori and Foxy when I was 10 years old, my life would have been totally different. So that's my parting comment right there.
Well, that's the.
I would like to. I think it's awesome what Sam said. Like, I'm curious about how bad he would have taken, but we're not going to talk about the what could be's and all that stuff. But that's interesting to hear him say that, though. I think it's awesome.
I mean, it's just, all movies evolve in one way or another. I mean, projects do. I can't complain about what's there. I mean, I executed it according to what the people who were paying the bills wanted. I mean, I certainly had, I didn't really have any allies in the fight, unfortunately.
Well,
I actually had one. It was Jack Schwartzman's son, John.
Oh,
but that was who shot the openings and stuff, and he was an ally with me, all the way through. He was my age, and we became really good. We were planning a theatrical release that, everyone got sucker punched by COVID. I mean, South by Southwest. I mean, I don't know if Bill was as disappointed as I was, but I was pretty damn disappointed that we didn't get to go to South by Southwest.
Yeah,
it was devastating. And, I think that but there's a lot of good things coming. The VOD, there'll definitely be a commercial streaming that'll happen, and probably a retail version of the DVD or Blu-ray. I don't think we'll come out with. I mean, the special thing was really nice. That the thing that Vinegar Syndrome did, and there. I mean, you never know. They might re-release it. I don't know, but I know that there's going to be more Rad out there for the fans, and I think they'll love it. I mean, it would be really exciting to see it in a movie theater, especially a place like Alamo Drafthouse.
Well, I can say for sure I'm excited because I never got to see it in the theater. I only learned about it after it came out on VHS. So in a way, this is kind of a whole new experience for me. I've been a fan for life, but I never had the opportunity to see it in the theater. So,
did you get the
I did.
Blu-ray?
Yeah.
Oh, you did,
and I am impressed.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks fantastic.
It looks great.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks really good
for sure.
And and they really cleaned up the sound too. I don't know what they did with that, but the sound was much better than I'd ever hear.
Oh, for sure.
Well, Sam, I want to say thank you for stopping and pulling your car over to look over that fence and take the time to watch these kids do these BMX tricks. Go to that bicycle shop, which later on I want to figure out where the bicycle shop was and what the name of it was. We'll have some of our people look into that. But man, like, had you not pulled over that car, I don't know if we'd be talking right now.
You couldn't. How do you not? When you see this, guy. It was called it was on Robertson Boulevard, and it was called either Hanzort or the Beverly Hills Bike Shop. I can't remember.
All right, I'm writing that down.
Cool.
Yeah, like I said, you pulling over and seeing that and learning about BMX, it's changed so many. I mean, Bill can attest to this. We meet people all the time that they watched Rad. It changed their lives. So you've done a lot. We're all friends and family because of this, and you're the guy.
Well, it's funny because I love I mean, like I said, like the Mongoose guys, they were so great, and so they gave each of us bicycles, but they didn't give me a BMX bike. They gave me a mountain bike. I was like, well, I want a BMX bike, and they go, well, you can't go back and tell them that,
No. Do you want to seem ungrateful?
I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Besides, that mountain bike was worth a lot more than the.
That's right. Yeah.
I got to ask one last question, okay? And is there anything from the show, the set that you have, Sam, that's like something you took home with you that's like a collectible, like one of the bikes or anything?
Let me tell you something. No, not my. You know what? I was disappointed. I gave away all my shit early on.
Oh.
Because, well, I'll tell you, because the expectation was so high. Everyone's telling you have a huge hit movie. You have a piece of this movie. You're going to get rich. You're going to go on to make a lot more movies. And so the letdown was really tough. And also, so I mean, because the buzz was just incredible on it, and they were so sure this movie was going to go out and do $30 million, which would have been a huge number for this movie. It didn't have to do $100 million like a Hal Needham movie. It just had to do between $20 and $30 million, and it would have been a bona fide hit. And it would have, and it would have been, and then you would have had all the action figures and all that other stuff that came with it. And it didn't happen. And it was so, I honestly, I just, I went on to do other stuff, and I put this out of my head for a few years. And then, I actually, when Jack Schwartzman passed away, I went up and I saw Talia, and we reconnected, and that's when we started. That was the first time we started talking about doing it, but she wasn't ready, and there was a lot of stuff to untangle. So, it was just the rights on that movie just got tangled up for a couple of reasons.
But you know what, Sam? 34 years later, you have a hit. You had a hit. You achieved that goal. It might have been in a different way.
Yeah.
But, you actually have a classic movie that people talk about. There's a fan base for it. So pat yourself on the back because you did something great, and it was a hit.
Yeah. Thank you. But you know what? It always goes back to the fans, because without the fans, it's just another fucking junkyard movie in the blockbuster junkyard. I mean, really, because so many movies, just even bigger movies, they don't. I mean, even Hal would say, I did bigger movies than this, and no one ever talks to me about them. They always talk to me about this. So yeah, I was very fortunate.
Well, we've held on all this time. I can say for most of us, fans, we never let it go. And
I know.
And it was very well written. It was very well produced, and we hold it near and dear to our hearts.
Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly to Bill.
And read Bill's book.
Yes. myradcareer.com.
His radcareer.com, and he talks and he mentions me like a couple times. So that's
yes. Yeah. You made the big time. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime you want to do it again. How many
Yeah.
do you plan? Do you have this planned out? I'm curious. Do you for your
Oh, hell no. We're winging it.
You're just gonna wing it. You're just gonna wing it.
We got ideas, and as we go along, we're seeing how this is scoping out. So yeah, we'll have a plan before you know it. So I mean, you're always welcome back, Sam. We'd love to have
Anytime
you.
you want. Anytime you want.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Sam.
Bill, thanks so much,
Thank
buddy.
you, Bill.
Thanks for checking out The Real 33. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Facebook at Real 33 Podcast.